What's your favorite Christmas
yeah,
movie?
I remember Santa Claus is Coming to Town and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That claymation or stop motion,
yeah,
however
yeah.
they did the Bass productions,
Yeah,
those are just in my mind as great memories.
I agree.
However, there were a few years where, because of whatever our family schedule was, we missed
Oh,
the
man.
show, and it was one time, one option.
That's
if you missed
right.
it, you missed it.
And it was just
And,
like heartbreaking. Like, are you serious?
was.
Can we?
Is
can
it
we
really
please?
Christmas?
Yeah, it was hard.
Welcome to the show called Let's Talk Homeschool, brought to you by Apologia Educational Ministries. This is the show where we talk about everything homeschooling: the who, what, when, where, why, and how. We want to affirm and encourage you in the decision to homeschool, challenge and inspire you to take it to new heights, and celebrate everything you get to experience along the way in this adventure of a lifetime. We're your hosts, Davis and Rachael Carman, and today's show is titled Advent. Okay, Rachel, let's talk homeschool. So it is the Advent season, and we want to have a Christmas show. So today we want to talk about our favorite Christmas childhood memories.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Ohio. You grew up in many places. Yeah. So I definitely remember just the hope that it would snow on Christmas Day. And that did happen a couple times growing up. And we would get up ridiculously early. Dad had a limit that 5 o'clock was the earliest we were allowed to get up.
Man.
So we always got up before that, but we couldn't knock on their door till 5:00, which we did. We're sitting on the stairs quietly, trying to wait, and then we'd rush downstairs, and sadly, in 15 minutes, all the presents would be open, and there'd be little to do other than play with the gifts that you got.
Yeah.
So what are some of the first childhood memories that come to your mind?
You had it all over.
Oh, we did.
Before the sun came up. That's
We did.
almost depressing.
Oh, I remember watching snow come down. It's totally dark outside. It's 5:20, and we're now done with the exciting part that was exciting for us as little kids.
Yeah. No, we were not allowed to do that, and at the time it seemed like torture, but even retrospectively, I'm really glad, and actually it's what we did with our kids, and that was we were not allowed to rush downstairs before. In fact, we all enjoyed sleeping in, right? Because Mom wanted for us all to be dressed for pictures and wanted us to go slowly and one at a time. And as a kid, it was torture, but at the same time, it really made it last longer. And I remember feeling that as a child, but still kind of wanting to do it all like you did. But I'm really glad we did it the way we did.
All right.
So
yeah. So like I said, we grew up in Ohio,
right.
Me and my family, but my parents were from New Mexico. So I only remember 2 Christmases that we spent in New Mexico.
Okay.
But what I remember about those is we could go outside and walk on Christmas Day. And I remember seeing some kids that got a bicycle that they're riding on Christmas Day, and you couldn't do that if you got a bicycle in Ohio.
Yeah.
But my grandmother Nani had this snow in a can. It was a spray can you sprayed on the tree, and she would let all us grandkids
Nani was
pick
amazing.
up the can and have at it, and it was self-serve. And every time I walked by the Christmas tree in her house, I'd pick up the can and put a little bit more snow on the tree.
She was an amazing woman. I mean, I would never have done that. I had an anti-glitter policy, so I'm sure I wouldn't have been snow in a can person. But no, I was going to ask you, because I remember a lot of years going to my Aunt Sharon's house in Arkansas or going to Nana Bert's house, which is also in Arkansas. And I was going to say to you, of all your Christmases, 50-50, how many did you have at home and how many did you have like somebody else's house?
We were always at home. Yeah,
But you went to Mexico at least a couple of times, you said.
Twice.
Okay, only twice.
So
okay.
with Grandma and Grandpa, but only twice. I only have 2 memories that I can recall that we were in New Mexico for Christmas. All the others we were in Ohio, in our home, and we might have Grandma and Grandpa visiting us.
Okay.
But even that was relatively rare. They came and saw us as often as they could.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically my memory is being at home with my family in Ohio. That's the baseline memory I have of Christmas.
Yeah, I'm really curious. I'm getting older now, so I don't know if it was 50-50. It feels like it was 50-50. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But my fondest memories were when we weren't at home. There was something about being at home that felt less than festive for some reason. And maybe it was because there were only 4 of us. It's only me, Mom and Dad, and my brother. And when we would go to my Aunt Sharon's house, it was the whole McCarran gang. So it was my dad's whole side of the family. And then if we went to Nana Bert's house, my mom only has one brother. But I don't know, somehow being with grandparents made it more Christmas. Now, my grandmother, your grandmother had snow in a can, which is kind of cool. My grandmother had I guess it was the 60s. She had the silver Christmas tree.
Oh, yes.
Did Nani have one of those?
Oh, yeah. It was an artificial tree. Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad always had a real tree.
Right.
And there were at least 2 years, maybe 3, that he wanted to dig up a tree and plant it in the yard afterwards.
Of course he did. That is so your dad. That is so your dad.
And it was a smaller tree.
Yeah.
You had this huge box that weighed, 1,000 pounds because it had dirt in it.
Yeah.
I still don't know how we did it and if those trees survived, but I know Dad was on a mission for us to plant it in the yard later that spring. I don't know how we did it.
That is so him. I did not grow up with any live trees. The first live Christmas tree I had after we were married, we never had a live tree. All of them were artificial. But this one at Nana's house, so it was silver. She sat it in her front window. And I think this was very 60s. She had this light thing that rotated green and red and white, green and red and white. And so she would turn that on. It would reflect on the silver. I mean, it sounds even cheesier now than then. But when we would roll into her driveway at like midnight, driving from Dallas-Fort Worth up to Little Rock, that was like the warm fuzzy. Like, we're here. We're at Christmas. We're at Nana Bert's house. And so it was a very fond memory. I actually saw a little silver tree the other day. I was very tempted to buy it.
In honor of Nana.
Yeah.
I do remember when we decorated our tree, my Nani, grandmother, would send each of us kids a new Christmas ornament every year.
That. Yeah.
And so our tree ended up being very random looking because we got to put our own ornaments on that we had been collecting through the years. And so by the time you're 18, you got 18 ornaments.
Yeah.
And this tree is just covered in random ornaments that were very fond to me as a child.
Sure.
Now, I do remember when we got married and I pulled out my shoebox with my Christmas ornaments to start putting them on. And you said, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
I'm putting my Christmas ornaments on the tree. And, of course, now we have a different tradition where we make the tree look, I'll say, nicer, less random and more beautified.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, I do think there's something that's very fond about that. I wonder if there's a way to do a happy medium on that, especially now that we have grandkids, because I've thought about how cool that would be to get them a special ornament every year. So I'm rethinking that. That's one of the things that I'm really thinking about, because I do like the sentimentality of that. But no, growing up, our tradition was, in fact, in my memory, my mom decorated the tree because she wanted it just so, and the rest of us didn't participate a whole lot. I think I was allowed to put the icicles on. Again, I'm dating myself. So the icicles were these long strands of silver, and I was able to, allowed to put a few of those on. But I don't remember. Christmas decorating was very different from what it is now, what it's become in our tradition. But I do remember the turkey and the dressing. That was a big thing, especially at my Aunt Sharon's house. The big spread. So when all the McCarrans would get together, my dad has 4 brothers and 1 sister and their wives and all the cousins, and we would go to my Aunt Sharon's house, and it was glorious. I mean, she was the best host ever, and she would make this big spread, and we would play card games late into the night, dominoes late into the night, and it was fabulous. And that was Christmas.
That's a good memory.
Family was Christmas.
Now, do you remember watching any movies?
Oh, goodness, yeah.
This was when we only had TV. There was no recorded movies of any kind.
No. The TV guide would come out, right? And the weeks leading up to Christmas, and you would circle when you could watch the different shows. So, Charlie Brown Christmas, that was the best. Santa Claus is Coming to Town. And my favorite, Rudolph was fine. Okay. My favorite has always been the classic Grinch.
Okay.
That was my favorite one, the classic Grinch. So not
The Boris Karloff
No,
one.
yeah, not. I am even true confession. I've never seen the real life one with Jim Carrey.
Okay.
I'm a classic girl. I like the original, and that was the thing. And yeah, what about you? What was your favorite?
Well,
Christmas movie?
I remember Santa Claus is Coming to Town and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. That claymation or stop motion,
yeah,
however
yeah.
they did the Bass productions.
Yeah.
Those are just in my mind as great memories.
I agree.
However, there were a few years where, because of whatever our family schedule was, we missed the
man.
show, and it was one time, one option.
That's
if you missed
right.
it, you missed it.
And it was just like
And,
heartbreaking. Like, are you serious?
was.
Can we?
Is
can
it
we
really
please?
Christmas?
Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard. And this is the other thing that's kind of funny about that. So, you and I grew up in the same era with television. You know, you were on the strict schedule the television or organizing people did. But I also watched Saturday morning cartoons, and during the Christmas season, Saturday morning cartoons, and even the Christmas shows that you've already listed, I didn't mind the commercials because there were all these toys.
Oh, they were targeted to the kids.
Oh, it was awesome because there was always a baby doll. There was always a dollhouse. There was always, my brother really liked G.I. Joe, and there was, the Jeep and the G.I. Joe and all that stuff. And it was awesome. I loved all of that because for me, and I think this is, the common tragic thread between your Christmases and mine. I mean, our grandmothers were great and family was great, and we had a great feast, and I felt secure, and I got a lot of the things that I wanted, but it was all about getting.
Right. It was all about the gifts.
I mean, my favorite thing about Christmas was the Sears, or I think it was Sears, not even JCPenney. The Sears catalog would come, and I would go through it, and I would circle and dog ear, and these are the things I want, these things. And I mean, even now, I'm so, it's terrible. My Christmas was going to be how I was going to think about that Christmas was going to be predicated on what I got, what I wanted.
Well, and even that's true for myself. And I still, if someone were to ask me what was one of my favorite or best Christmas memories, it was the year that I got a bicycle.
Sure.
1972, a green Schwinn bicycle. Best Christmas ever, because I never thought I'd actually get a bicycle for Christmas. Now, I couldn't ride it till March or April.
Oh, so it was one of the Ohio
It was in
years.
Ohio.
Oof, that's tough.
But it was the gift that was just super memorable.
It was the thing. Okay, so this is really funny what our gifts were, and given who we've become, and you like to mountain bike, and so what was my gift that I wanted more than anything? The doll that peed. I mean, it's kind of funny. I mean, as a mother of 7, that's kind of funny. But there were these dolls that were battery operated, and you could give them actual liquid, and their mouth would move. I mean, you listen to and I wanted that doll. And you actually changed the diapers, and you could actually feed them little packets of food, and you could feed it to them. I thought that was it. And I remember I got that doll that year, but I remember other years having things circled in the catalog and I didn't get them. And I remember being angry and mad and disappointed. Christmas was not what I wanted it to be.
Yeah, well, one other gift I'll mention is the ping pong table that we got, because it was not on our list.
Yeah.
And it was a really good practical gift for kids to go down to the basement and do something, that's building relationships, that's building skills. And me and my 2 friends played ping pong every day after school for years.
I bet.
Got really, really good too, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But
you were in Ohio too. I mean, you were inside a lot, so there's that.
But the common thread, you mentioned it already a couple of times, was the gifts.
It was.
That's what huge. Our childhood Christmases centered around. The Sears catalog, the gifts, and that made it a good Christmas or a disappointing Christmas. Mm-hmm. So,
but what did our Christmases not have?
That's the question. Our Christmases growing up did not have Jesus as the center. It was literally about the gifts.
We didn't sing carols. We did not have a nativity scene anywhere.
We didn't light Advent candles.
We did not go to a Christmas Eve service. Christmas was not about Christ at all, his coming at all.
So when we get married, we have kids, and now they're at the age where we have to decide what do we want our Christmas
Wait, back up
memories to
though.
look like.
I can remember before that. I remember the first nativity. I remember the first Christmas Eve showing you and I went to.
Yes.
This was the turning point for me. So Charles would have been
1 year old.
No, he was an infant.
2 months then.
Yeah, so he was 2 months old. He was born in October. And there was a large church in Akron where we were living at the time called the Chapel. And one of our neighbors invited us to go to the Christmas Eve or to the Christmas service. I don't know if it was Christmas Eve or not. I think it was though. And we had never gone to Christmas Eve. I didn't know even what to think. I was just sort of like, okay. And we went, Charles stayed with us. I was nursing him at the time. Charles stayed with us. And this was a life-changing moment for me.
It was literally life-changing.
I was absolutely blown away. The quality of the nativity, not the passion,
production.
What's it called at Christmas?
The play, the script,
the nativity. That they had live animals that walked down the aisle. There were camels, there were sheep, there were donkeys that walked down the aisle with this orchestra music and this couple with an infant in a manger. And I was sitting there holding my own son, and this pastor went over to the manger after all of this. They had the angels, I just can't tell you how overwhelmed I was at this. And he went over and he scooped up this newborn out of the manger, and this was Newt Larson. And he lifted up this infant, live infant, and he said, "Behold, the Lamb of God who takes away." And I just remember sitting there holding our son, just going, whoa, this changes everything. This is so much more than I ever imagined. I just remember sitting there and there were tears dripping off my chin and landing on Charles. And I was looking at him going, I would not give you for the sin of the world. And yet God gave his son for my sin. It was remarkable. And then they turned the lights out and we did the candle lighting, and Newt started it and lit his candle, and he talked about Jesus is the light of the world. And it was the first time I'd ever been in a candlelight service, and it blew me away. And it has forever changed me. I will never forget that. That was 33 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it changed how we did all of our subsequent Christmases with our children.
Yeah, so Charles was our first, and as a young parent, you start thinking about what do we want our Christmases to look like? Yeah. Christmas traditions, mornings. Are we going to travel? Are we going to stay home? What about gifts?
Right.
And so as young parents, we're trying to figure this out. And so with our kids, we really made a U-turn, so to speak, where we made Christ the center of this season, where we had an Advent tradition where we lit candles, and every night we'd sing songs and have a 5-minute little worship service with our kids as part of our family worship. And we'd sing Away in a Manger, and there's nothing like a 2-year-old singing Away in a Manger with all the motions.
Well, we made up the motions. Those are not universally known. We did that because we wanted our little kids to be able to participate.
It was continued to be moving for us as the adults in the room, for our kids that literally got to focus on Christ for a month as we went through the Advent season. And then as part of the way that we tried to de-emphasize the gift giving and receiving during the holiday was we would practice Psalm 23, verse 1. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And we would talk about that with our kids. We have everything we need. We don't want for anything when we're in Christ. And many people are going to be giving gifts. You'll receive some gifts at Christmas, but we don't want that to be your desire. We don't want you to want things. And so we would practice the language with them. Right. And when they would say, I want this for Christmas, and we say, well, let's change the phrase to I would like. Right. Or it would be nice to play with something like this, or I would enjoy this. And so we got rid of that word want just to help them pause and think about it and talk about it differently. And of course, that as a parent, when you try to do something like that, you're creating something that's going to take a lot of training.
Right. And and during the Advent, we also at some point adopted the Jesse tree, which we've talked about here before. But we also incorporated a lot of the carols, because we didn't have the carols. I mean, we didn't sing any of that because Christmas wasn't about Christ. And so learning the carols with our kids participated in nativity scenes.
And in Christmas pageants.
And all of that. And the kids reenacted it here, because we had enough kids to have shepherds and angels and Mary and Joseph. And so the kids did it here at the house, sometimes when the grandparents would visit. But we really tried to hyper-focus everything on Christ being the present. And now we have his presence with us at all times and celebrating all that he had given and done for us and is doing and will do for us. We wanted that to be the focus and not the presents under the tree.
Exactly. And so Christmas is got a completely different perspective for us, has through the 30 plus years that we've raised kids. And recently I wrote another children's book called The Birth of Christ. I did this with my oldest son, my second son, who's an artist, Anderson, and this is in comic book form. So it goes through the story of the birth of Christ in beautifully illustrated comic book form, and the last picture is one of my favorites, when Mary treasured all these things in her heart. And so this short book is available. You can, if you go to Amazon and type in my name, Davis Carman, or type in the title of the book, The Birth of Christ, you can find it. They print it on demand. They'll send you a copy.